right. Um, we get quiet like this and we start to turn our attention away from objects in our life, whether it's conversations, people, tasks, work, hobbies. We're studying our mind. That's what this time is about. It is a study of our mind, how it works. And we're not gonna read about how our mind works. You're not even really going to be told how your mind works. I'm going to give you suggestions for you to sort of study it yourself. What's going on? And that the idea is that through studying our mind, it relieves some pressure. That it's part of the mind to know itself. One of the troubles we have in our modern English language, at least one trouble I have, is a lack of words. The yogis in their Sanskrit use Sanskrit to have so many words to describe aspects of the mind. It's amazing. We just call it mind, then we go awareness, then we go consciousness, then we go thoughts. And then we have to start reusing those things. So hopefully I'll try to be clear tonight. But just realize that there's aspects of the mind. Some of those aspects can be quite problematic when out of balance, misunderstood. And so for some of us, that's part of our work too, to bring the mind back to balance through understanding. The main one is just thinking, as we talked about already, overthinking, talking about ourselves, to imaginary people inside our mind. They're based on people we know, but they're in our mind and we're talking to them. And everyone seems to be doing this, like a collective madness. You're driving your car and you have conversations. It gets really bad when you start doing it out loud, but we're doing it internally. This is just one aspect of our mind. My teacher called it self-referential internal narrative. It's an internal, right? We're not doing it out loud, thankfully. It's a narrative, it's a story. And we're looking into our memory to reference an idea about who or what we are. Usually our body, mind, our name, our personality from the past. And we talk about it to ourselves. This part is very problematic in general. In my opinion, it actually serves very little purpose. Maybe had a purpose at one point, but not so much anymore. Now, I do think deep thinking, though, critical thinking, contemplating, these are a wonderful quality of the mind. I don't want that to stop. Actually, we'd like a little more of that. I think we'd all benefit from a little more deep thinking. Even our sensory awareness, even when our body feels, our eyes see, this is another aspect of the mind. We see an image and we label it, we recognize what that is. That's happening in our minds. So these are three major facets. There's more. These are three major facets of the mind: self-referential, internal narrative, highly problematic for most people, deep thinking, contemplation, and then felt embodied experience, the senses. When someone's deep in thought, it's actually quite enjoyable. It's really enjoyable if you can get to the edge of your understanding, edge of your understanding. There's just this empty, vast space there. There's wonder. And if you can really get into your sensory experience, you can really focus with your eyes or really listen with your ears, really feel sensation in the body. This is also deeply satisfying. But if you get really deep into your self referential internal narrative, it is not satisfying. It just gets worse. The story just gets more complicated. It loops with usually negative emotions. And so part of this studying of the mind is for us to understand it's just not worth doing that, really. And also to understand how beneficial it is to deeply contemplate or to be in a felt embodied experience. And as we sort of examine and study our mind and the aspects of our mind, in my experience, it's more peaceful that way. I know the terrain. Let's spend some time now, a few minutes. Let's just try to make the distinctions. Let's just try to clearly, presently become aware of these three layers of our mind. When you have self referential internal narrative, just observe that's what's happening. It's just thoughts about some concept of your I. If you really start to think deeply, contemplate, feel it as separate, distinct. If you really get focused in your body sensations, it's distinct. There are different qualities of mind. Let's just spend a few minutes feeling into these layers, understanding them. Or maybe you're a little still uncertain. What does it mean to be in deep thought or contemplation? How is it different from narrative, just continuous narrative? For me, the contemplation, it's like resting the mind inside of a part of itself. It just stares at it. You're not using your eyes, you're not using your physical body or your breath or your ears. There's no physical senses, so it's not the third category. And it's not just talking to ourselves about our ego, our past, our future. There's just this restful space. You can just look at it with the mind instead of looking at your narratives, your self referential internal narrative. You're looking at this little hollow of quietude in your mind. There's no referential self there, but it's still something I can observe. It must be of the mind. It's not of my physical senses either. Let's try again. Don't try to go through them sequentially. Just observe where you spend your time. Don't try to force it. Don't try to make any of them happen. Just observe. Is most of the time in self referential, internal narrative? Is most of the time in embodied sensation? Or is that's sight, sounds, smell, physical sensation? Or is most of the time in this contemplative hollow in the mind? And just see. And if you have a fourth category, I'd love to hear about it afterwards. Now you're going to notice if you have judgments around these three states. Now, I admit, I did say, for many people, the self referential narrative is problematic. But look at it with a fresh set of eyes, a fresh mind. Make sure there may be portions of it, or even all of it, that narrative. It's just not a problem. It's fine to just go on. It may even be the judging that's the problem. See if you have any judgments if you enter one of those quiet little contemplative hollows in your mind. If you have a judgment around that, or when you're just feeling the sensation of the body. We're adding this additional aspect, and I think judging is a part of the narrative ultimately, but just see if you can feel, understand, and observe this aspect of the mind that layers judgments into these three other layers. Could you see the judgments, the evaluation, good and bad? Notice how the judgments feed the self referential internal narrative. They keep it going. When we judge, it's another kind of thought. It links the ego thoughts together and perpetuates them. When you judge those quiet hollows of contemplation as good, it pulls you back into story. When you judge body sensation, it pulls you back into story. Thoughts without judgments, those are just ideas. Ideas can serve you. Try again, another round. See if you can understand the power of judgment. How it functions in the mind. Don't decide whether judgment is good or bad for you. Just understand how it functions in the mind. I propose that it links other states of mind into more self-referential inner narrative. See if you observe this. The power of judgment. Grow open to explore. Having spent some time observing the power of judgment, grow open to exploring. What does the mind look like with less judgment? What does the mind look like with less self referential internal narrative? What vistas could I see? What mindscape could I find? You know what judgments feel and look like. You know what the self referential narrative feels and looks like. So now you can learn to look elsewhere with the mind. You might find body sensation. You might find contemplation. You might find something you've never found before. The self-referential inner narrative is just a little piece of the mind. Judgments are like highways leading to it. Contemplation is just another part of the mind. Body awareness, just another part of the mind. Don't go looking for them. Go looking for something you don't really visit very often. Maybe you've never been there before. The edge of your understanding of this experience you're having. If you go and try to find it, that's just a different part of the mind. That's just the ego talking again. Let your mind unfold new spaces, spaces you don't know what to call them yet. Feel into the edges of the inner narrative, the edge of the contemplative hollow, the edge of body awareness and sensation. Feel into the edges and start to understand what else is there. relax from the practice.